what are boundaries and how, I feel so open,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that what are they? How can I kind of like grasp them on a kind of like a feeling level, and then how can I just start taking steps to have them?
Mm-hmm. Great questions. So your question is, what are boundaries? And what does that mean? And how do you create them? How do you hold them, in a sense? This is actually an important topic of discussion with a lot of my clients, because we don't really know how to set good boundaries. Especially with some of my clients who are abuse survivors, the idea of boundaries is like non-existent. They just don't have them, which makes everything very confusing, and it keeps everything right in their face most of the time. The opposite of that is that because they have so much pain, because the energy coming through the no boundaries place, they create what we can refer to as armor instead. Now there's a difference. Armor, if you are armored, nothing gets in and nothing gets out, which means that yeah, you're protected, but you also can't share. You have a feeling often of being isolated, because the energy of being human has to do with an exchange of energy, exchange of information and emotion. But if you're armored, you simply can't feel that. And so you get to a place where you feel alone and abandoned, isolated. That's a sign of armoring. And that's not what we're talking about. The best thing to do with armor is to get rid of it and replace it with boundaries, with shields. Okay? So what is that? What is a boundary? I think of boundaries as being an energetic bubble that surrounds everybody, surrounds me, that has a film on it which filters out energy. The good boundary is roughly as big a bubble around you as you can reach with your fingers in all directions. So front to back, side to side, above and below. It can have a color. My boundary tends to be more transparent in that sort of filmy outside, but the inside is more of a golden white. That feels like a good healing, calming color for me, but different people are different. So it can have a color. And the intention around that is that nothing gets into that boundary without your permission. No one can enter without your permission, energetically, mentally, physically, or emotionally. Does that make sense? I often refer to that as personal space. That's my personal space, and you have your personal space, unless you let your boundary, your field, collapse, in which case you don't have the filtering that you need. It's like things get right in front of you. They're right here before you have a chance to react to them. And then it gets to be really hard to sort out what to do next, and you become more reactive. So the process of expanding your space and keeping it at a distance is a really strong thing to do. And of course, parents don't teach their children that. Abuse survivors don't have that support system for the most part. But I find often as not, a lot of people simply don't know what that is and how to set it. In that regard, on my website, on GerryStarnes.com, there is a MP3, a guided imagery, that's free, and it's about a 20-minute guided imagery meditation called Personal Space. And it takes you through that process of identifying what that feels like to be protected. Okay? So I commend that to you. It's free. Might as well use it. So there's the boundary, and what it does, it's a barrier of sorts that sorts through the energy. And in another video, I talk about how that's one good way to sort out what's yours and what's not. Without that barrier, it's harder to do. So it's important for people to have good boundaries. it really is important.
That visualization too, that was helpful. That was like, oh, that's, boom, you've got it. You know, I just never thought of that.
Yeah, and people do let it down. A colleague of mine, Cecilia Zuniga, enhanced that a bit for me. And for her, yeah, she does a bubble thing, but whenever she's going into a space where she feels especially vulnerable, then she imagines rings around around this bubble, maybe 2 or 3, that are constantly in motion. They're just sort of swirling like this. And so that as the energy comes in, the ring intercepts it, kind of bounces it off. Okay, so that's pretty powerful. Another person talks about her daughter has a boundary, and what she does is she imagines herself in a disco ball, which is surrounded by mirrors, of course. And so all the energy that comes toward her gets bounced back so people can see themselves. That's pretty creative. Okay. You can also imagine changing the shape. So if you're in a place where the energy is coming at you really strongly, you can change the shape so that it moves around you. So you can imagine different shapes. I've worked with people who their boundary is a sphere. Some are a triangle or a pyramid. Whatever shape makes sense to you, whatever matches your field, use that. It works perfectly. So it is, and some people would say, it's just my imagination. But I'm here to tell you that your imagination is a very powerful shamanic gift. And so use your imagination, use it creatively so you can protect yourself from the energies that are outside. You don't need to be bombarded all the time.